The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
It was the alleged murder weapon. Investigators say it was used to kill a Boston police officer. Law enforcement quickly seized it, but then prosecutors lost the trial. And now the accused wants the alleged murder weapon back. That's right, Karen Reed has filed papers for the return of her Lexus SUV. Will she, should she get it back tonight? We answer the question. In Columbia County, Florida, allegations of foster children and adopted children put into cages, forced to do chores, and physically punished while the biological children played and watched TV. What was going on inside the home of these four adults? Tonight, all the shocking and disturbing details. But first, on a cold October afternoon in Lacey, Washington, 17-year-old Fatima Ali's cries pierced the silence outside Timberline High School. Her parents, enraged by her refusal to go home and get ready to leave on a one-way ticket to Iraq, launch a violent scene in broad daylight. Witnesses rushed in, pulling off the parents as Fatima ran to safety. Authorities later calling it a chilling attempted honor killing. Now charged with attempted murder and kidnapping, her parents sit in a courtroom fighting for their freedom. And tonight, all the evidence is in, and all the arguments have been made, and it's time for the jury to speak. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. This case, this trial, like every trial, is a search for the truth. That's what our system is set up to do. When allegations are made and people deny those allegations and want to go to trial, the trial is set up for us, society, to get to the truth and for the jury to tell us what happened and what it means. Here, the question is, did they want their daughter dead? That's what this jury has to determine. It's an attempted murder trial. I know it's the parents and it's the daughter, but it's attempted murder. It's caught on video. But a big part of attempted murder is, hey, they wanted to kill her. They wanted to end their daughter's life. That's the allegation. That's what prosecutors have to prove. That's what the jury has to determine here. So the question is, was that their intent? Because we see the results of whatever their intent was, which is this horrific, out-of-control violence caught on video. So we see it, we hear from the witnesses, we don't hear from the defendants, they don't have to speak, but we didn't hear from them. So what caused this violence? Was he just angry that she wouldn't go home? Angry that a teenager was rebelling? Or is there more to it? You know, you look at the video and you think the case is very simple, but it's not that simple. Because it's not about just what happened. It's also about why it's happening. There is a question about what exactly happened in terms of the injuries to Fatima and how she got them, but there's also what is motivating this level of outrage and violence in plain sight in the middle of the day? Is it a father losing his cool because his daughter's not listening to him and won't go home? Is it a father who gets angry because he's trying to bring his daughter home and there's a bunch of kids jumping in? That's what the defense is alleging here. It's not so much saying what you see on the video isn't happening. It happened. What exactly happened, but why did it happen? What was motivating it? And again, it's the jury that must tell us. And this jury has been deliberating for over 7 hours. This is a case where you've had, this is like day 10, but you had a jury instructions, you had opening statements. So it's about 8 days of evidence and testimony in this case. And under my theorem of when does it become a long deliberation, 8 hours. So when that jury comes back tomorrow morning, mid-morning, that's when we start getting into longer deliberations. So make sure you're tuning in first thing tomorrow morning, because we're getting very close to the time that most juries, or the average jury, would come back and say something. Either, listen, we're at an impasse here, or we've reached a verdict, or we need some clarification on something. So that's what's happening. Let's go back, though, to the biggest piece of evidence, which is the video itself. The video itself. Here it is. There you see the father, the daughter, and the boyfriend. So prosecutors saying the father's going after the daughter. The defense is saying that the boyfriend's going after the father. And the father's just trying to get his daughter home. But what is he doing here? And what's happening right here? Are the injuries caused by the people jumping in and trying to get Fatima away from her father? Or are the injuries caused by the father who wants to kill his daughter in broad daylight in front of everyone? That's what this case is about. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining me tonight, longtime Massachusetts attorney Rick Grundy and criminal defense attorney Josh Colesrud and criminal defense attorney Ellis Palavides. Okay, great to have everyone here. It's the man show tonight. Men talking law. That's good. Here we go. Let me start with you, Rick. Looking at the video, it's horrific. The daughter is injured. Everybody saw it. She testified about it. Where is the line between an angry father with a teenage daughter who's not listening and a father who's attempting to commit murder?
So, as I assume they were instructed, the jury, that intent, and it's a lesser intent based on how he was charged, can occur in a matter of seconds. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean that he went out there hunting for his daughter with the intent to kill her at that time, but that it occurred sometime in this scuffle. I think it's a tough hold.
Well, what's interesting about that, Rick, what's interesting about that is early on, and obviously this jury's not hearing about it, but early on the whole talk of this case was that it was an attempted honor killing. An honor killing isn't like this. An honor killing is like something that you're planning because of behavior, to make a point, to set an example. So I'm wondering what the truth is here about whether or not this is an attempted murder in the way prosecutors have alleged.
And I think part of that is the other unspoken here is that this is clearly a family from a very strong culture that is very different than ours, as it is to rearing children and certainly as to dating. And jurors' minds got to be running wild with respect to that aspect of it too, again, which was not presented to them. As far as the father is concerned, it's that chokehold. You know, this is not, and I think the defense attorney kind of didn't really handle that well in their closing when they're talking about he's just trying to carry her off to the car. You know, whether it's anybody who has police or military training or watches the WWE, he's got her in a very seriously dangerous hold that is designed to render a person at a minimum unconscious, and if they're not released, death comes shortly after that. The other thing blurring the lines here is you've got a very weak case, in my opinion, against the wife. So is the jury out as long as they have been because they're dealing with that aspect of it? Or is the weakness of the wife's case bleeding over to the husband and saying, look, they're both there. He overreacted more, but neither one is really showing that intent.
That's a great point, because I mean, there's different circumstances for the mother and the father. All right, Josh, if the boyfriend and the others don't intervene, does he murder her right there?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? You kind of touched upon this, and the judge didn't allow the prosecution really to get into it. Was, is this or was this an attempted honor killing? Now, that's the 400-pound gorilla in the room here, because the judge did allow the prosecutor to say that Fatima believed that she was going to permanently go to Iraq with a one-way ticket, with the implication, even though they couldn't say it, that, there was something amiss here, that this was somehow tied into the motive. So, even though the judge didn't allow the word honor killing, there was something there with allowing the prosecutor to get into that. Now, I think that when everybody looks at the video, it's almost indisputable that the violence seemed to be spontaneous. It wasn't thought out. I mean, if somebody was going to attempt to kill someone, you would think that it wouldn't be in broad daylight at a bus stop in front of 20 different witnesses. But here, there is a legitimate argument that the father, overreacted by trying to discipline his daughter, certainly committed an assault, but was it attempted murder? That's a tough one to sell to the jury.
Yeah. Ellis, looking at, I've watched this video so many times, and it's hard to peel back everyone else that is there, right? Because if it's an attempted murder, he's going to go there, he's going to grab his daughter, and he's going to kill her. He's going to, strangle her right there. I don't know if things are elevated by the boyfriend and others, or if they are saving her from the murder. I guess that's what the jury has to figure out. But that's one thing that I can't tell by just looking at the video.
So I do think the jury has a tough job, and the difficulty you're facing is exactly the difficulty they're facing. The argument is important because when you start looking at the beginning, when he's grabbing her alone, it is different in terms of how it develops to when the others join in. And so I think the argument the defense is trying to say is, look, he's grabbing her. He's got her in kind of almost a headlock at that point, not around the neck. And he's trying to take her home. Then all these guys jump on him. And at that point, things change. And it's not possible for him to form that intent to kill when he's getting hit in the head, being attacked. And at that point, he's in the position he's in and kind of locks in. So that's where I think the difficulty is.
Yeah, I agree. It's not crystal clear. But let's listen now to the testimony, the most important testimony from the victim, the daughter, Fatima. Here she is talking about her father.
Well, how old is your dad, if you know?
He's in his 40s.
Okay. Do you know how tall or heavy he is?
No.
Okay. Is he bigger than you?
Yes.
And when you were talking, did you talk back to your dad? Meaning during the course of the conversation, was he just talking at you and you were waiting for the bus? Or did you engage back with him and speak back with him?
I talked back.
Okay. And was that in English, Arabic, or something else?
Arabic.
And what were you telling him?
I didn't want to go back home.
And did he accept that?
No.
And what about his demeanor or mood? Was he happy and relaxed or something else?
He looked frustrated.
Sure. Was your dad aware that people were recording?
Yes.
And how do you know?
Because he told me.
Okay. Was he smiling during the conversation with you?
A little bit.
Was it a happy smile?
No.
And tell me what you mean by that.
He looked mad while he was smiling.
So he looked like he was mad, but he was smiling more as he got angry?
Yes.
After your dad grabs your hoodie, let's go through some of the senses. What's the next thing you remember seeing? What are some of the images that you remember seeing?
I was seeing my hand reaching my neck.
When you said you saw your hand reaching your neck, okay. Do you remember if it was light out or dark out?
Light.
And why is your hand reaching for your neck?
Because I knew my dad was choking me.
What are you thinking during this period of time?
Heartbroken.
Okay. By what?
For what my dad did.
Okay. Did you have any fear?
Yes.
About what?
Of dying.
Okay. Are you saying anything?
No.
Your Honor, this might be a good time for break.
All right, so Rick, what I'm troubled by, and I know, and we all know, all the viewers know, no one has to testify, but a father doesn't explain what happened, right? For me, I feel like the jury would need that if you're trying to convince them that you weren't attacking your daughter. Like, let the jury understand what you're going through. Like, the lawyer's trying to do it for him, but the lawyer can't. It's got to come from the father to say, you know what, my teenage daughter was missing in the morning. We went looking for her. We found her. We told her to go home. She wouldn't go home, right? And bring the jury to the point of, okay, well, what can a father do to get their child, their teen child, to go back home with them? What are they permitted to do?
Well, in this situation, again, I think the juror's mind is going to run towards the great unspoken here, and this is the cultural norms that this family may practice or believe versus what we would consider in standard society. I think. Well,
Rick, let me ask you though, Rick, in standard society, you have a teenage daughter, right, who left home early in the morning. You find her, you tell her it's time to go home. She says she's not going home. What should a parent do? Does the jury need to understand what you can and what you can't do at that point? Obviously, you can't choke them out. Like, I get that. But what can a parent do? Can a parent physically get their child into the car? Because my guess is if he was going to testify, that's what he would talk about. But he didn't, obviously. But, I mean, I could see a jury thinking, like, what is a parent supposed to do? What is a parent permitted to do at that moment?
So I think, again, I think if we go back to people with in this day and age in particular, they understand that you cannot forcibly grab a child and stuff them into a car in a violent manner. It is not going to go well with you. At a minimum, when they catch up with you, that child is going to go into services and be taken away from you. So again, I think the attorney did a good job of saying here, you know, we're looking this is about this video. This is 53 seconds. We're not looking at either end of it. But to your point, he didn't and was unable to say this is what really happened. Again, this intent, the jurors can find that it only came about when he was getting stomped and he sees, I don't know what he saw as far as
he looks angry right there.
contact.
When he punches the boyfriend, you can see the intent in that moment. Before we run out of time, Josh, what are your thoughts? Do you think the jury is thinking at all about this, like putting themselves in the shoes of a parent trying to get their teenage daughter to come home who left at, 4 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, how could they not? Watching this, the jurors are probably asking themselves the same questions that you're asking us. I mean, every parent has been in a situation where they certainly wanted to force their child to do something. And in this case, Fatima woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, stole $100 from her mother, left the house without telling anybody, and they were probably worried to death. And then they found her with the boyfriend that they don't like anyway, who has his hands on her back and is disrespecting the father. And, obviously he should not, ever put his hands on his daughter like that, especially in front of people. But I think that, he's a little sympathetic because of her actions earlier that morning, especially because the jury, they can't really hear too much evidence about the honor killing stuff and the, forcing the daughter to go to Iraq. So I think that you're right, that they have to be thinking about what does a parent do? If this, what could a parent do? How far can they go?
Let me ask you, Ellis, we got word that the jury late this afternoon took a break, said we need to take a walk. What do you want to read into that, Ellis? Is that good for who, right? Good for the prosecution, good for the defense, or what do you think's going on there?
I've spent a lot of hours trying to read jurors' tea leaves and the little clues they leave, and you just don't know. What I do know is this, though. Deliberations get intense. Disagreements become intense. And sometimes they need a break. And judges will give them that, especially sometimes they'll go back for the weekend, for example. They'll come back on a Monday. They'll be fresh. That's part of it. So things get really heated. Jurors care. Jurors pay attention. And I found they take their job seriously. And sometimes they need to let it marinate a bit and then come back when cooler heads have prevailed and they can re-engage in the conversation. I wouldn't read it one way or the other.
Yeah. Sometimes during the show when we were doing it up there in Massachusetts, Rick, we needed some time away during the Karen retrial just to cool down from that whole thing. All right. Think Tank is staying with us. When we come back, a horrific story out of Florida. A family, they have 14 people living in a mobile home with 3 bedrooms, 9 children taken by family services, the parents and their adult children under arrest for the abuse of 4 adopted/foster children. Cody Thomas will join us with details on that, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, she was the sharp-tongued matriarch accused of turning a bitter custody battle into a deadly plot. Now Donna Adelson faces trial for murder, and the secrets her family fought to keep buried are about to explode in court. Will Donna be convicted? Tonight, we investigate.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Welcome back. This next story, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but it's an important one. I'm talking about foster children, adoptive children living inside of a home. I want to show you 4 mugshots, and I'll explain who they are. Take a look. This is a mother, a father, and their 2 adult children. But all 4 are under arrest for what happened to 9 other children living in the mobile home that they were all residing in Florida. We believe that 4 of the children were foster adopted children. Horrific details in this one. So we're going to bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas here in studio to walk us through these allegations. The first time I heard about this story, I was like, whoa, 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 what's going on here?
There's a lot going on here, Vinny. Very devastating, very sad, very tragic. This is all taking place in Fort White, Florida. It's a couple miles outside of Gainesville, Florida, to give you context of where we are. 9 underage children in this house, ranging from ages 7 to 16. We have, like you said, 5 biological kids between the mother and father, 4 fostered or adopted. Now, again, we don't know foster or adopted because both of those terms are used in the press release and the police report, so just to clear the air on that. But 4 non-biological kids, primarily African American. Now, the Florida Department of Children and Families got involved in this because one of those non-biological kids brought a fully functioning taser to church camp earlier this month. So, of course, that rose some concern among people who saw that, and they tried to lie and say it was a toy. Police figured out it was a real taser. So that's how they got involved. So, again, 9 parents, or 9 kids, plus the parents, plus 3 adult children. Now, 2 got arrested. There was another adult child in the house. That's 14 people. Inside of a mobile home, Vinny. And so police say when they first arrived after the whole taser incident, doing their investigation, they noticed that these non-biological foster or adopted children were working, doing chores, while the other biological kids just played, were living like children. But Vinny, it gets even worse. Take a listen to some more of these allegations. This is from a press release released by the Columbia County Sheriff. Take a listen to this.
During the interview of the children by DCF, various forms of child abuse were discovered. Accusations of the adopted children being beaten with a cane by Brian and also locked in their bedrooms by Brian and the other adults. As a result of the allegations of physical abuse, DCF investigators obtained a court order to remove all of the children from the home. Over the next few days, Child Protection Team investigators conducted interviews with all 9 of the children. During these interviews, allegations by the children included being caged under the bunk bed by screwing in plywood to prevent his escape, being forced to lie on the floor by the mother Jill, and having her place a sheet of plywood on top of the child's body and press down on them, resulting in splinters and pain, being sprayed in the face with vinegar as a form of punishment, being given non-prescribed medication, being instructed to lie about what happens at home, and not being taken to or provided with adequate schooling to read or write. So, Vinnie, you heard it there, just absolutely atrocious. And it goes on to say that these kids, you know, they don't even know their full names or their birthdays. One of the teenage girls just admitted that she can't read. She's illiterate. And, you know, it mentioned not going to school, not getting an adequate education. They also talked about not being fed in equal capacity or at all compared to the biological kids. But Vinnie, there's a 10th child, a teenage girl. Now, they moved from Arizona. All this adoption happened in Arizona, then they moved to Florida in 2024. A 10th child was there, one of the adopted or foster children. She said it was so bad, according to the police report, that she somehow got in contact with her biological mother and begged her biological mother to take her back to Arizona, which
she got out.
She got out. And so police, of course, reached out to her. She is currently residing back in Arizona with her biological mother. Now, in the redacted police report, she talks about sexual assault allegations against the adult son that was arrested. Now, this kid is Dallin Griffith, one of the mugshots we just looked at. He's 21 years old. Now, according to that redacted police report, she says, quote, redacted, assuming that's her, stated that in April 2024, redacted disclosed to her that she had been sexually assaulted by Dallin Griffith, Jill and Brian's adult son. Redacted reported that the sexual abuse last took place in April 2024 prior to her departure. Redacted also disclosed that Dallin has taken redacted, and redacted, so assuming that's more of those children, in the bathroom, and she heard funny noises coming out of the bathroom. And Vinnie, this redacted police report goes on to get more into detail, but I figured I'd spare some of those really graphic details there because they do get a little bit atrocious. But there's also some allegations against the father, Brian, that he molested some of the children. But again, Vinnie, Brian, Jill, Dallin, Liberty, all arrested, all being held on $500,000 bond each.
All right, so sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, no education, locked in their beds at night, some sleeping on the floor, punished with vinegar. All right, so how are they able to foster or adopt these children? That's right. That's the first question. Like, first of all, you've got 7 children of your own, so like it seems like 7 is enough, but apparently they get 4 to do some of the chores around the house.
Yeah, Vinnie, and that's the golden question, right? And it still kind of remains unclear because you have to jump through a lot of hoops to adopt and foster children. They make it, you know, somewhat difficult to weed out, you know, hopefully people like this.
Exactly.
So what I did, Vinnie, to give viewers context about some of those hoops you have to go through, I checked the Arizona Department of Child Safety's website for the qualifications that you need to even start the process. And to my surprise, there's an 84-page go-to guide. This isn't even the full escape, but it's 84 pages of just like frequently asked questions and things you have to do, and it just outlines everything. And so right there on page 14, Vinnie, it outlines what is expected out of the first month of placement once you foster a child. And it says, in part, the foster caregiver is to participate in planning to maintain the child in the school of origin, the school the child was enrolled in at the time they entered the foster home, unless it is determined that it is in the child's best interest to be enrolled into a new school. If enrolling in a new school, enroll the child as soon as possible or within 5 days, which is interesting, Vinnie, because
it
didn't happen, right? And so then it goes on page 47. It talks about foster parent licensing. This is all in Arizona, by the way. It says in part, ARS 8509A states that foster home licenses are valid for 2 years. An annual life safety walkthrough by your licensing agency will also be done. You are licensed by the state of Arizona. You have a foster parent agreement with DCS and usually an agreement with your licensing agency. Should you choose to transfer to another agency, all of the records are property of the state of Arizona and should be given to the new agency at no cost to you. So what I took away from that portion, Vinnie, is that that's one annual walkthrough out of an entire year.
Right.
So if you clean up the house and the guy's coming to walk through and you tell the kids to lie about whatever's going on, lie that you're in school, lie that you're being fed, lie that
everything's going on. And that's part of the allegation, right?
That's part of the allegation.
They told the kids to lie.
Right. So if you do that, you might be able to get by and circumvent the system there. Now, because they moved from Arizona to Florida, I did a similar thing. I went to the Florida Department of Children and Families to see what it takes if you're moving across state lines to Florida. And on their website, they had this whole outline of the screening process that comes with. And in part, it says, quote, in regulation, if the applicant or any other adult household member has resided in any other state over the past 5 years, requests for abuse and neglect histories must be made of those states. The supervising agency completing the home study shall, at a minimum, conduct 2 visits to the applicant's home, inspect the entire indoor and outdoor premises, document the conditions, and conduct face-to-face interviews with all household members. Now, Vinnie, again, that's 2 days out of 365.
Right, yeah.
So that's an obvious, of course we know it's an obvious failure by the parents of these children, putting them through all this abuse that they're going through. Is it a failure by the system? That's left up in the air.
Yeah, because we don't even know the nature of the adoptions, like how it went down allegedly out in Arizona. Because if one was able to be returned, how did that happen without a state agency jumping in there? So something else is going on here for sure. All right, Cody Thomas, thank you so much. Let's bring back in our think tank, Rick Grundy, Josh Colesrud, and Ellis Polividis. Let me ask you, Josh, I'm looking at this now. Wait a minute. They're taking these kids from Arizona. They're bringing them to Florida. There's allegations of sexual abuse. There's allegations of physical abuse, putting the kids to work. This sounds like trafficking. Let's bring the feds in on this.
That's a great point. And, Arizona, my home state, I dealt with these issues both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. So in this case, specifically, this was a private adoption. So you don't have the overview that you would if it was through the government, for instance. And, when you're adopting kids and sending them from one state to another, the states don't necessarily share the information that they should. And so in this case, really all the adoptive parents, the ones in Florida, had to do was, basically had a clean record. That, and they're not supposed to adopt too many children. So the fact that they have adopted 4 should have raised red flags, and it didn't. But I think that the feds definitely should look at this for trafficking. It's multi-jurisdictional, and it seems like a coercive nature, which is going to be the key point. Were the biological parents coerced in any way, shape, or form to give their children up, for an illegal purpose, because that would be trafficking.
Yeah, Ellis, I think we're just at the tip of of uncovering what really happened here. Something stinks to high heaven. First of all, moving all these kids from Arizona to the middle of nowhere, Florida, where you could sort of, if you look where this house is, I mean, there's not a lot around there, so you can kind of fly under the radar until your son brings a taser to church camp. What are your thoughts about how much more prosecutors can do here?
Prosecutors are going to do a lot. The fact that already on your show we were able to find a 2024 sexual assault allegation, because if you look at the statement that we've seen so far, there wasn't a reference to sexual assault at this point. So the fact that that already exists and wasn't examined is going to be huge. Each of those kids had a history. Each of those kids should have a paper trail. All of those paper trails are going to be examined, and all of it is going to be looked into. And I assure you that if there is a failure on the part of any state agency for failing to oversee, there'll also be a civil component to this eventually. But right now, the priority is holding the individuals who are accused of this to justice, because this is malevolence, and they're going to really root this out, I assure you.
Rick, the other extremely troubling part of this, like everything's troubling, but so there's 9 young kids. It seems that the 4 foster/adopted children are doing chores, and they're getting the grunt of all of this. There's also a possibility, we haven't confirmed this, that they may all be African-American, or a majority of them may be African-American. Like, they're basically taking these kids and enslaving them, for goodness sake.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very horrible situation. It was mentioned in some of the reporting on this that they are of a particular religious sect, which is oftentimes associated with large families and not necessarily involved that much or willing to be involved that much with the government. So if those adoptions, as Josh was saying, went through a church organization, you're not going to have that any kind of, you're going to have some oversight, but you're not going to have the oversight you're thinking about when there's 51As already in place. The parents are supposedly working for unification when the adoption happens, or any of that. And picking these people up and getting them to Florida was probably no more difficult than putting gas in the car and loading everybody in there. So the second tenet to that is I can tell you that with respect to my other two colleagues here today, I'm guessing that Massachusetts has that much more laws and regulations when it comes to child protection. The problem is if you don't have the infrastructure to put those regulations in place and have the laws abided by, you have horror stories like Court TV covered just 6 months ago.
Absolutely.
With children.
We're out of time for this segment, Rick. Stay where you are, folks. When we come back, Karen Reed wants her Lexus back.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Defendant not guilty or guilty? So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you all?
So excited. Couldn't have asked for a better outcome.
We waited for this, and justice is finally served.
I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters. No one has fought harder for justice for John O'Keefe than I have, and my team. Thank you.
So the alleged murder weapon in the case against Karen Reed was her Lexus SUV. It's like a very expensive murder weapon, like $80,000, $90,000. Take a look. She wants it back. They filed a motion. Ms. Reed respectfully moves that this honorable court order the return of all of Ms. Reed's personal property. Most importantly, probably the 2021 Lexus LX 570, her cell phone. Counsel attempted to negotiate the return of the listed property with ADA Autumn Lally in late June and has not heard back. All right, let's bring back in our think tank. Rick Grundy, Josh Colesrud, and Ellis Palavides. Ellis, what are your thoughts here? It's the alleged murder weapon, but it's her like $90,000 SUV. Should she get it back?
It's not a murder weapon. She was found not guilty of murder. It's her car. She's going to get it back. Look at the motion. It's not even, it's 1 or 2 paragraphs. You can just tell how the defense is feeling about it just by looking at that motion.
And one little line to take a last shot at poor Autumn Lally as well. I think it's taken a while because it's just like the final surrender, probably, the final raising of the white flag that they don't want to do. I don't know. If it was me, I might say, call the U.S. Attorney's Office. They've been steering this bus for a while. But as said, it was never entered into evidence. If it had been entered into evidence, even with the not guilty, you could make an argument that it needs to be maintained for the record. But it was not a piece of evidence. The case is over. It goes back.
So, Josh, what do you think she does with the SUV when she gets it back? Like, what do you do with the car, right?
So
Everyone
sure
knows the story.
Know.
Everyone knows the story. Everyone watched the trial. So what do you think she does with it?
Well, first, the prosecutors may be holding on to it because there are additional investigations. Also, there's a civil lawsuit, a wrongful death lawsuit, and there could be a chain of custody issue with that lawsuit. So, there's also potential investigations into obstruction of justice, where prosecutors are looking at third parties that may have manipulated the crime scene. So the cell phone evidence to see who Ms. Reed was talking to, if anybody, as well as the vehicle to see if there was any manipulation to the taillight, like the defense claimed during trial. Now, it could be something that's still looking at. But what doesn't look good, obviously, is the prosecution not communicating to the defense, because it just looks like they're doing exactly what the defense was telling everybody they were doing, which is, making this stuff up as they're going along, and now they're just playing a sore loser.
Yeah, Ellis, what are your thoughts here? If this was your client getting her car back, would you have any advice as to what to do with it when you do get it back?
Well, there are other issues going on, like the other civil matters. So she may want to, I would advise her to consult with those attorneys as well to see, what to do with it. So that would be a part of my advice. But with respect to whether there are other investigations that the government is taking, then that's fine. They can respond that way, and they'll have to show that to the court. But at the moment, there isn't anything about that we know of, so it should go back.
And Rick, do you think she drives it, gets it fixed, sells it? To me, there's like no great answer to any of that, because if she's like driving down the street, driving the black SUV, people are going to take pictures, they're going to post it. I don't know. Is there anything that's insensitive about it, or what do you think?
With what we saw over the past 3 years, Vinny, I'm thinking roadshow. I think they're going to, put a collection like Elvis and take it on the road and show it. Maybe it's for the movie. Maybe it's just for another 2020 segment. Maybe it's just to get up in the government's face. But, if I were an attorney, I'd go to them and tell them we want the money instead.
Take the money instead, let the state keep it. Yeah, if they have any money left after paying outside counsel. Rick Grundy, great to see you. Josh Colesrud and Ellis Palavides, awesome. We'll see you guys again real soon. When we come back, folks, I'll reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, a grandmother at the center of a chilling murder-for-hire plot. Did Donna Adelson mastermind her own son-in-law's execution to keep her family together? As the trial nears, dark secrets, family betrayals, and a deadly obsession take center stage. Can prosecutors prove it? Tonight, we investigate.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Welcome back. Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board, and a sketch has been released. This is a person of interest in the Devil's Den double murder out of Arkansas. Clinton David Brink and Kristen Amanda Brink were hiking with their two daughters, who were 7 and 9, when they were murdered. The daughters are okay, so my guess is that the daughters provided the information for this sketch. This sketch was made, and apparently the suspect may have sustained an injury during all this, was wearing dark pants, ball cap, sunglasses, black backpack, fingerless gloves, was seen traveling in perhaps a Mazda with a license plate covered in electrical tape down State Highway 170 or 220 near the park. Again, that is all in Arkansas, in Devil's Den State Park. An incredible tragedy. Those two girls lose both their parents, but if you recognize that sketch, please make the call. Right now, I need you to take a look at something else as well. We have a child who's missing tonight. This is 17-year-old Caden Grant Kukin. Caden has been missing since July 24th out of Wichita, Kansas. If you see Caden, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference. 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Wichita Police Department in Kansas. That number's on your screen right now. Let's see if we can get Caden to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.